The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. Moscow surprises the people of Belgrade and startles the nations of the West with a sudden deployment in Yugoslavia. One more odd element in an arrangement that still looks very open. Hello and welcome. There's no neat way to end a war, and Friday the proof was plain to see. Russian troops appeared unexpectedly in Yugoslavia, showing the colors of a peacekeeping force they have not arranged to join. It has never been clear how or where Russia would help keep the peace now that the war in Kosovo is over. Negotiations on the subject had broken off, and a U.S. envoy had left Moscow for Brussels. When U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright heard that the Russians had ordered their soldiers in, she ordered his plane turned back. Russia's role is just one element of the many that remain unsettled now that the war is over. On our program today, some questions about Kosovo. NATO forces massed along the Yugoslav border and prepared to go across in a long-awaited and widely watched deployment. But they were ordered to stand down Friday, and the operation was delayed for at least one more day. Russian troops weren't waiting. Even as U.S. negotiators were trying to arrange for Moscow's participation in or alongside NATO's KFOR peacekeeping force, Russia made its own arrangements. An advanced convoy of trucks and armed personnel carriers crossed from Bosnia into Yugoslavia and appeared in the streets of Belgrade, already identifying themselves as KFOR. NATO had literally mapped out the division of responsibility for KFOR among peacekeepers from the United Kingdom, United States, France, Germany, and Italy. Russia isn't on the map, but it was on the move, and by every indication, it stood a good chance of beating KFOR into Kosovo. The Russians may be the only ones who know where they're headed. A U.S. negotiator, Strobe Talbot, is trying to find out, and other Western diplomats are waiting.
I think we're going to get a solution in the end. There's a bit of a negotiation going on.
There will be more negotiation even after plans for peacekeeping are set. The accord that NATO is imposing on Yugoslavia is incomplete or ambiguous in some central respects. The United Nations Security Council is to establish an administration, a government for Kosovo. What kind of government will that be? Kosovo has never known democracy or a market economy. Yugoslavia is to remain sovereign over Kosovo, though it will not govern it, police it, or defend it. What will that mean? Who will print the money, handle the mail, hire the civil servants? How long will KFOR troops and the UN administration remain in control? And who will they give up control over Kosovo to? The difference between the Kosovo settlement and the Dayton Accord that ended the war in Bosnia seems enormous to some of the people familiar with both.
I used to say when I worked in Bosnia that there we were trying to implement the most ambitious peace agreement in modern times, with all of the detailed provisions concerning most things. In Kosovo, we don't have a peace agreement.
Perhaps one of the most telling indications that there could be trouble ahead is the gulf between Russia and NATO in policing the peace. Moscow's deployment of troops in Yugoslavia caught NATO off guard, and yet they are nations that will have to cooperate and coordinate with each other. There's also the question of whether Russia has the ability to deploy enough troops to have a real presence in Kosovo. The country is in a financial crisis, and morale in the military is low. Here's Howell Jones in Moscow.
At a former KGB barracks 40 miles from Moscow, conscripts sing a marching song about their forefathers being sent to the front. But these soldiers seem reluctant to leave Russia and keep the peace in Kosovo. The men of the Balashika motorized brigade worry that at worst they would have to fight and die. I don't have any desire to go there, says this private. At least here there's no bombing. I don't want anything similar to Chechnya or Afghanistan. In a country which is virtually bankrupt, the army has learned to take care of itself. But feeding the chickens can be as much part of daily duty as cleaning your gun. While the lower ranks grow tomatoes to save a few rubles, the generals calculate that the cost of peacekeeping in Kosovo would be huge. More than £100 million for every year Russian troops are there. No small part of that would be the bonuses soldiers would earn, up to 20 times their normal salary. Well, why would people go, says this lieutenant, apart from the money? If my homeland sends me, then I'll go. In the long term, up to 10,000 Russian soldiers might be sent to Kosovo, but but for the moment, these conscripts are content to stay in their barracks. Howell Jones, ITN, Moscow.
Uncertainty in some places is matched by celebration in a few others. CNN's Jim Clancy is in Pristina, the provincial capital of Kosovo, and joins us now. Jim?
John, those Russian soldiers, if they do find their way to Kosovo, are going to find a warm welcome. Thousands upon thousands of people, ethnic Serbs here in Pristina, have turned out. The first time they've had anything to celebrate literally in months. These people are in a good mood. They've been firing guns in the air, a bit dangerous on that front, but also some fireworks. They turned out because they were surprised at the news that Russian peacekeepers would be coming here. Also surprised that they're already in Peš, a city just about a 2-hour drive, a normal drive from Pristina. They could possibly be here in 4 hours, but they have been held up. The Russians and the Serbs say they are ready, and this has changed, in a sense, the atmosphere in this city, the security atmosphere for ethnic Serbs. At one point during the demonstration, an American flag was burned, but Americans walking in the crowd said they felt no animosity. There was a good feeling here, although there still is some resentment, some bitterness that is aimed at NATO, and specifically at the United States, whose warplanes flew so many missions over this province, caused so much destruction to the infrastructure of Kosovo. The ethnic Serbs see NATO as an ally of the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army. The ethnic Serbs, though, see the Russians as someone who speaks their language. John?
Jim, you're making a point of telling us repeatedly that it is the Serbs who are celebrating. Any guess on how ethnic Albanians are likely to see a Russian presence in their midst?
So far, there's no indication that they would see that as a threat. They have looked upon this day. We went to one of the camps where the internally displaced people that disappeared